hardly any graduate who was, and so every USA thing I was on it. But I would be invited to cocktails and so on, and I would not speak to anybody because I didn't know what to say to them, because I am not naturally an extrovert and so on and so forth. And even if you do my spreads on me now, it will show you that I'm very introverted. I prefer to be by myself. But when I'm speaking, there's nothing that shows that I'm introverted. But it's because I've learned to, because it does not help my business. You say that, oh, that's how I am, and then, you've got to be able to know yourself and the way you engage. Because one of the key things of an entrepreneur is the ability to build relationships and to have a network and to be confident. So I started practicing. I sat in front of a mirror and say, okay, when this person says this, what will you say? And then talk to my, I actually had to go through all that to be able to now, I do it with ease. But that is the price of entrepreneurship. It is a painful and yet a joyful thing to be an entrepreneur. And when you succeed, the feeling that you have cannot be compared, I think, to if I had worked for somebody else my whole life. But the psyche, even as I go through this, I'd like you to be checking about yourself. What is my general attitude? In fact, my attitude when I can't get before, when I can't get something that I need and there's a stumbling block in my way, was to get angry and to shout louder. Does not help anybody in getting what you want. But that was the pattern, and I had to change that pattern. And sometimes in our zeal to reach deadlines and so on, and our workers or our team is not cooperating, we take over everything and want to do it ourselves. And so you will see that one of the things that about entrepreneurs is that they like to do, as much as we say we like to work in teams, we like to do things by ourselves because we think we can do it better and faster than those who we have hired to do. But recognize it and then see what you do with it. So if we're talking about world class, building our businesses from now so that we become world class, then it means we should be able to stand in any environment, whether we're standing in Ghana, in West Africa, or globally. And we must have the ability to maintain success after success over the long term. In fact, this is how I found somebody described excellence as the ability to be able to succeed or move from success to success over a long term. And at first I didn't, agree with that person until I found that, yes, you could actually. Whatever you're doing, you are bound to fail or succeed. What is important is the learning points. And what is important is the innovation and to move. And so every time you're doing something, you are failing or you're succeeding. But you are not stuck in the success or the failure. You take a lesson to use as a building block for the next stage. One of the most dangerous things for us as entrepreneurs is to have a cycle of stagnation, where you don't move because you become satisfied. Look, the good, or what you call the best, is only good enough for today. By tomorrow, things have changed. And what was best becomes redundant. Even look at our country now. In the past 2 weeks, what has happened with the dollar? Every entrepreneur now must be thinking of what to do so that you are totally not out of balance or shut down. If you were probably a CEO who had been hired, you can afford to say, let's shut down the plant for a few months and settle down. But if you are an entrepreneur, you are on the job, whether you are sick, you are not well, and so on and so forth. So remember that excellence in being world class is being able to sustain success long term through learning from failure and success, innovating and moving Now, the other thing that I want us to look at is that world class is a continuum of enterprise growth. You might be only relevant now in Ghana, but as you continue to grow, because of the psyche, the thinking that you have, you are positioning yourself to be somewhere, which you must decide. And I remember that this has been very helpful and useful for me in terms of the fact that for my consultancy, what was driving us was to be in West Africa by 2015. Now, whenever I look at that and we are not where I want us to be, it pushes me. But if I didn't have that in the beginning, and at first I used to say, okay, we want to be in West Africa. I hadn't given myself that specific. In fact, it took me about a year for us to be able to say by 2015 we would be in the whole of West Africa. And that also directs your opportunity, Antanai, as to what is happening. And now, yes, we are in Ghana, we are in Nigeria. In fact, we are opening an Institute for Performance Thinking in Abuja in September. But it means that by then we are going to be in Sierra Leone in August. So I only have my Liberia. I mean, it's English speaking, not the French. Yeah. You think about at that point. But the point that I'm making is that you will find that if you don't give yourself a continuum, and I use the word continuum rather than a straight line or a goal or whatever, because it is, you change as you go along, even though you have the general picture. It's one of the key things of entrepreneurs, of a lot of research that has been done by Princeton, Harvard, Yale on entrepreneurship, and what that entrepreneurs may not start off with a specific concrete picture. They have the total picture, but not the details. And that drives us until finally we get. So you will find that if you, a business generally grows like this. It goes up, comes down, things happen. You tie your knot, and then you go up, and you know, so. But the thing is to be prepared for the down. And as we say, it generally said that it's to be forewarned is to be forearmed. And so once we know that our businesses are going in an up and down mode, as soon as we see the symptoms that is sending us down, we begin to look at what is it that is causing it. Because you have that automatic, habitual way of thinking. That's your thinking pattern. And so instead of going into a scare mode, you rather are standing up and saying, what should I do next? And so you find that every business has this kind of growth. When you're starting, it is the entrepreneurial thinking that keeps you going. But when you get to a certain point, you have to go and get the professionals to help you out. And this is where most of us fail in our businesses. Because we still want to be the all in all. Whereas, in fact, I'm dealing with a guy now, he has 38 companies. We cannot stop him from dreaming up businesses. That is him, he's an entrepreneur. But the point is that now the businesses have grown to a point where you need professionals to run it. It's too big for him to do 38 businesses and be an accountant for all of them and so on and so forth. Now the battle that is going on now is the professionals are coming up with certain ideas and he's pushing against them because, oh, you put this one aside, I don't have money for this one now. I have this new idea that I want us to do. But you've got to let them stabilize before you move on to the next one. And leave the professionals to do what they know best. But once you get professional structures and systems, and they don't have to be very, very sophisticated, you can outsource all these things. But when you start going up again and you're coming down, you need the entrepreneurial spirit again, or else the business just dies. And so you will find that even with big multinationals, they will change when they reach maturity for them, and then they go into new products, or they even change what they're doing altogether. You know, I mean, look at Viagra. Viagra is a result of a failed heart medicine. But they didn't stay at that. They said this is what we could use it for. And now they're making a lot of money out of it. So remember that the entrepreneurial spirit will always be needed at the beginning when things are going down. But when you want to build, as much as you put the entrepreneur there, it is the professional aspects that you now should be paying attention to. Otherwise, in our zeal, entrepreneurs, when we have a cycle, or let me see, how would you describe your profits? The word profits. How would you describe it to somebody that I need a lot of profits? What would you do with that profit? Yes, anybody?
Reinvest into it.
Reinvest. Okay, what else?
Save it.
Save it. What else?
Use it to start another venture.
Start another venture. Anything else? I see you smiling at the back.
Obviously, spend some.
You spend some. See, there have some other people here. You have to spend some. Why are you working so hard? What are you working so hard for? We have to spend some, I have no problems when the entrepreneur comes and says, I'm getting a loan and then I will buy 2 Mercedes, and I said, no problem. We will do it, but we have to do it in this manner, and do it in that manner, and we will buy 3, not 2. As soon as you do that, you've hooked it into a Psyche. That is who entrepreneurs are. We like to be seen and to be known for having succeeded on something or the other. But unlike the banks who don't hook into the Psyche, they'll say that, we won't give them the money, they'll go and buy. Give it to them, let us, but have ways of directing and guiding that person so that the person is able to give you more than they thought of in the beginning. And so that is my position, but maybe it's also because I'm an entrepreneur, so that's why I think that way. But I think that I teach the banks to think that way, so that they also make some profit. So a world-class psych means it is a way of thinking that has that has heightened awareness of world trends. Now the key word there is a heightened awareness. If you look at your business, how aware are you of what is happening concerning your business? Otherwise, you'll be going some, coming some, you just flow with the wind, and that is it. And you don't make what you want, but you must, because you want to be global. What are the trends in the world? And then you must make deliberate, and this is key. You must take deliberate decisions that will affect the enterprise based on this. It is a decision making, and that is determined by the kind of psyche you have. And we have said that your psyche is about your attitude, your perceptions, your beliefs, your values, and your thinking patterns. If you don't get this correct at the beginning, it will always be, I had a habit of spending. And so every profit was to be spent and not reinvested. And you know how I got that? Because when I left work, I was in the insurance department of what is now Ghana Union. It used to be the insurance department of Unilever. And when I stopped work, I worked for 3 days in a week. And I worked from 9 o'clock to about 2 o'clock. And in my first month, I made 3 times my salary. So I said, what? It was a good decision. I left, I left this company. But it did not occur to me, where do we want to be in 10 years? For me, in my psyche, and in with most entrepreneurs, that is the missing point. The systematic planning part of it. We are very good at opportunity seeking and catching it. But we've got to build it if we want to be world-class businesses. Otherwise, we'll be small all the time. Okay, so let's look at, okay, I'll skip this one. This one you can have it later on the slide. But these are the kind of things that people think about us. That we have some magic in our personality, that we make things happen and then we just earn money. You know, when people see us and you've probably, after a lot of hard work, made some money, people say, hey, you made money. They don't think about all the work, the pain, the frustrations that you had to go through to be able to get to that particular point. And for me, I find it very exciting. You can always differentiate the entrepreneurs from those who are not by the comments that they make, And it's important to know that there's a difference between an entrepreneur and a business person. You can inherit a business or be put in charge of a business. But the entrepreneur, the key things that the entrepreneur will always want to add something. A mark that you see, this lot, this movement of the enterprise, was because of that. And so the thing that we're going to use
need them in government.
Yes, that's why we are trying to create or develop intrapreneurs, because they will be we need intrapreneurs in our enterprises to be able to take decisions that will, you need somebody who will catch on to what you are. So we call it the critical 6. When you're a very big company, you must always know between 1, 2, and 6 people in your organization who are critical to you to keep the fire burning. All right. So they think we'll go on holiday in the Bahamas, and then that's the rest of the points. Now, a very important point that I want to make about the psyche, effectual thinking, that is non-predictive thinking. I did say that entrepreneurs are total picture people. They see that, okay, I want to do this. The picture is there. I can only start from here, but I want to go to 10. Or let's say I'm to Z, I'm at A. So they'll take A and B, but they will not necessarily go to C. You might see them jumping to D and go to F and G. And they're moving towards Z. Whereas somebody who is a straight MBA running a business will be more systematic in saying A plus B will equal to C and will go to D. And that person is also making successes. But we are impatient with those kind of people. But we need them at the professional stage when we need to grow so that we can continue to get our ideas running. So we are more of effectual thinkers. And remember, we are talking about psyche now. So we are more effectual thinkers than causal thinkers. It doesn't mean that we don't think at all in a causal way, but rather our preference. So the trick is to be able to have a balance, all right? But our preference is more effectual. And transformation, in the sense that we like to transform things. We like to say we create something out of nothing. I mean, if you think of that there is nothing new, honestly, there's no new business in the world. It is all a rearrangement and a recombination. If you know the rearrangement and the recombination, you always come up with something new in quotes. If you look at even a chip in your computers, it's really something that has been compressed at very high temperatures and has been mixed with various chemicals to be able to get this. Look at the way planes fly. The law of gravity says anything heavy must drop. But if you rearrange it and you get aerodynamics, then everything will go fine. So the thing is that in your business, what do you need to rearrange or recombine to be able to go to the next step? You must have that psyche where constantly you are able to look at your business and say, let me shift this, let me move this, so that I can get a new thing. You have to have the confidence to create your own world. All these things in this room did not exist a few years ago. In fact, people would have said it's impossible. And yet somebody insisted and was able to come up with a blind, with a computer, the glass, the table, the chairs. All of it was non-existent. That was a rearrangement in somebody's psyche. Another thing to pay attention to is, I've talked about it already, is that we need to be optimistic. Your psyche, because there are times you'll be so low, so very low, and you have to teach yourself to pull yourself up. Because everybody will say, yes, we told you that the thing will not work. Now look at you. I remember very well when I had this problem with Pier 1 and I had to lay off my workers and so on. This was the same, see? Meanwhile, when I was making the money, everybody was saying, oh, she's my classmate, you know. Now when I went down, everybody was saying, you say you work, you deliver, you see where you are, look at us, and so on and so forth. But you have to create your own system, which you will be able to pull yourself up. Because entrepreneurs are loners, I tell you. We are loners. It is after we are sure and we come out, and then people crowd around us. But in the inception stages, we are loners. And then remember that we are not risk averse, but our risk is calculated. We are not gamblers. Let me do it and see. We think of a lot of things before, but there's always the factor that we may fail, but we try to reduce that. We have a freedom and flexibility which we need to express, and so structure, kind of keeps us. I remember when I said I won't work with you, my mother nearly died, and I've spent all this money sending you to university, and then you come and tell me that you are not working, that you want to go and make bags. And you see, then I was selling the insurance to build capital because it was easy. It was a matter of just talking. And at that time, whilst I was with Unilever, I actually had started doing my chartered, insurance. So I had a lot of knowledge that people did not have about various kinds of insurances. So when I go to an insurance, I want to speak to only management. And you can imagine those days, I just come out of university and I want to talk to management. But anytime I'm going to tell them things they have never thought about, then they'll sign on. So that need to be free. I remember somebody asked me, why do you want to stop work? And the only thing I could tell the person was that it restricts how I want to sleep. Because I was living in Tema and I had to wake up early, and you had to be at work at 7 o'clock. And Swan Mill was where I was working. Swan Mill is in Makola. So, and then you have to close restaurant. You don't have time to do things for yourself. So it pushes us this freedom, this need for freedom and flexibility. And we are constantly aware of change. It is in change that we make money. I tell people that, look, every time you wake up as an entrepreneur, pray that you have problems. Pray that your clients, your customers complain. Because it is in that you make money. When you know why they are dissatisfied and you can satisfy it, then of course you do it and they are willing to pay for it. Every idea is useless to an entrepreneur unless it can make a profit. Every idea. It's just an idea. Until it can be manipulated in such a manner that somebody is willing to pay for it. Now, 15 years ago, do you think Zoom Lion would have made money? We thought it was the government's responsibility, the district assembly, to come and collect our rubbish free of charge 20 years ago. But now everybody knows you have to pay to get your rubbish, so it's a good business. So you've got to be aware of the changes that are coming or moving around in your environment, and then you see the opportunities that are in it. We must think of continuous improvisation. You know, you must learn to dance with life as an entrepreneur instead of just walk. Because when you walk, you are kind of engaging the same muscles, isn't it? In a walk. But when you learn to dance, the muscle movements, sometimes you go in circles, sometimes it's vigorous, sometimes it's slow. That is how you must live life to be able to let your enterprise grow. Dance with a psyche, where you are using your energies and your concentration. When I write PZC, it's just a principle in physics of the quantum zero effect, where you have a lot of atoms being concentrated in a particular point, so that you are able to create high energy and that sort of thing. Now, as an entrepreneur, everybody has a limited amount of resources and a limited amount of energy at any point in time. Now, how am I going to use this energy or utilize it to an optimum so that it benefits me? Now, if you don't learn to concentrate your energy, and you find that even with those who drive racing cars, one of the first things they teach them, you know, when in the racing, there's a barrier, there's a wall that separates them from. That when your car goes out of control, remove your eyes from the barrier. Your natural instinct is to look at that barrier because you don't want to hit it. But in that chaos, that is exactly what you do if you keep your eyes focused on the barrier. And so you as an entrepreneur, you have a psyche of choosing to think about the things that will work and the things that will not work. And so to ask yourself, what am I focusing on today in terms of my business being a global business? What is my focus? Becomes very, very, very important. And be outcome based, not output based. When I say that, what I mean is that if you are output based, it means that's why we do strategic planning. You want to reach this goal, and we have to have so much, and therefore this is how we will get there. For an entrepreneur, that goal becomes your minimum. That's the minimum. The maximum for somebody is your minimum. And then we begin to look at the other possibilities that I can add on in what I want to achieve. So let's say, give me an example of one of your businesses. Who's doing what? What you are doing?
Artisans, which is a portal that allows you to search for artisans.
Okay, the portal that allows you to get artisans. So, how many artisans are you engaging in? Or how many people? What's your traffic that you think people?
Well, at the moment, I'm looking at about 1,000 searches on the portal per day.
So 1,000 searches per day. Great. But in these searches, whilst people are searching to be able to find artisans, what else would you be benefiting from because somebody is searching for an artisan? Begin to just write down possibilities, and you'll be surprised that you might find 5 other things that can be done. When I started my consulting, we were strictly a training, in fact it was not a consulting firm, it was a training organization. But as time went on, and in fact we just dealt with entrepreneurial behavior, the way entrepreneurs behave. Now, out of that and the research that we did, we got a base of research work that could be related to any type of growth, whether you were in the public service, you were a private person, or whatever. There was a consistent pattern. So we started doing research in the civil service as to how people think when they want to grow in the civil service and so on. And so we got this body of knowledge, and out of that, now we started consulting in a whole realm that I had not at the beginning even thought of. So always think of the outcome. Look at the total picture. Yes, this is what I want out of it. But on my way there, what else can I collect? That's what I mean by outcome based. And then have the welcome problem frame, which I just talked about, that always welcome problems. This is an opportunity for you to make money. Don't have a psyche that is not afraid of problems. What most people do is that when something is a problem, what enters? Fear. And fear is what? Who can define fear for me?
False evidences appearing real.
Yes, false evidence appearing so real that you go into stress, you begin to show the symptoms of stress on your skin, and so on and so forth. And the power of fear is 2.5 times stronger in you, the energy it creates in you, 2.5 times stronger than reward. That's why some people are driven by fear instead of maybe reward. But it's so powerful that it's important that you don't entertain it. So that restlessness to create opportunity, the right place, you might have even the right place, you might have the right solution to give a portal, the timing will be right, but you're wrong side because of the fear. Will this work? Spoils the whole thing. It is so powerful that you really have, if you have fear, and you need to quiet and have time for yourself and find out how my fears. What frightens me as an entrepreneur? What is my psyche? What is the fear in my psyche? And you remember I told you that I'm an introvert, and it was translating to a lot of things. And one of the things that it was translated into in those days was the fear of even publicity. People will come to me and say, look, we want you to come and talk to us. Oh, it's okay, talk to somebody else. It was an opportunity for a free advert to talk about what you do and where you can be found. But that, and it was not showing up as fear. It was showing up as I want to be humble, or I want to. It shows up in all kinds of directions. That's why you need to look at yourself and see, what is the fear that I have and how is it showing up? And how is that affecting my enterprise? I had to break that barrier and to be able to talk about it. And so I look back and I see a lot of things that we missed out on because the driver of the enterprise, the owner, the entrepreneur, had a sack of fear. Now, another thing that I want you to look at in your psyche is the fear of success. Do you think there's such a thing as the fear of success? And recently, there was somebody, I forgot what it is, but he has this game on this Japanese guy, and he shut down. Exactly. He was so successful, he says, he shut the whole business down. $50,000 a day. He said it's too much. Fear of success. And then we need to be able to do this dance with the paradox of people thinking we are mavericks, that we can let anything happen. And at the same time also, we need to be creating partnerships amongst ourselves to grow our businesses, especially in the virtual world now. And then we need to watch our egos and be sensitive to all these things, and be sensitive to our gut feelings. Indeed, it is very, very right. It's very, very right to be able to call it gut feeling. In that, in your gut feelings, everything shows that this is not. This is not what we should do. The figures are showing you that, but deep inside you, you feel that I'm on the right path. I know what I'm doing will get me there. Now, don't be quick to dismiss that feeling, because actually, science has taught us that what we call gut feeling is actually accumulation of chemicals that are coming from your memory, which has not become very clear to you, but there are things in your memory that's telling you you've had this thing or you've thought about this thing before. The facts are there, but it's not coming up. You know, sometimes you tell yourself, or somebody asks you, let me explain this, and you say, I understand it inside, but I can't explain it. It's because it hasn't quite been coded for you to frame in your thinking. So don't ignore the gut feelings that tells you move. Be cautious about it, but don't dismiss it. Okay? Another thing about our psyche that we should, before we come to the word, is that accept failure as a growth process. Don't be worried by the fact that you have failed. It is just another learning experience of how not to do it. I remember in our days, they used to teach us if you don't succeed, try again. But what they forgot to say is that change the method. The same thinking will not take you to a different path. It will take you to the same conclusion. Yes, try again, but use different method. All right. So this is a kind of, if you ask me, what is the psyche of an entrepreneur? This is what I think is essential for you to have in your psyche to be able to keep you moving into a world-class situation. But then, like I said, I need you to be aware of the darker side of the entrepreneur. Continued success can lead you to overconfidence. There are some entrepreneurs who are so note, the word is not confident, it's overconfident, that they are obnoxious. You can't even stand them. All they know is I, and I, and so on. And so just make sure that overconfidence does not crush you. Remember that first quote I gave to you, that the very things that will help build you are the very things that will kill you. You need to be confident to be an entrepreneur, but keep it balanced, because it can also destroy you. It makes you feel that you are infallible, and you overrate your success based on dogmatic assumptions. When I say dogmatic assumptions, they are things that are not facts. And then you base all your whole business on that. And then on assumptions that, I was successful with business A, so I will be successful with business B. The dynamics are different. And as much as it gives you confidence, please don't think that you are infallible and you are God, because you've had a few successes. And then we also have the need for applause. It is natural. It is a reward for us when people applaud us. and take notice of us. That's why we find that most entrepreneurs will have a business and they call it, they put their names, so and sons. We don't have that so often these days. Or they call the business and they make a combination of their names. What do you call it? Okay. My first business was called A&A. It was called A Squared. And then when people call me A Squared, I know they know me long before, And A Squared could be an architectural firm, it could be a mathematical firm, it could be anything, But it was not selling, it was just my name, So it is good, yes, your name, we know you are the CEO, but try and use your name, your company name, to also advertise yourself automatically. And sometimes you actually read adverts and they don't tell you what they do. And there's a huge signboard and they assume you must know them. Please don't make those assumptions. Hey, what have I done to this thing? I'm not a tech person. What have I done to it again? You see the age gap. So, the applause can result in us being emotional and in a lack of emotional intelligence. And sometimes we lose very, very good employees just because of our need to be noticed. I remember one guy who came one day for a loan, thank you. And he came with somebody carrying a suitcase. We wanted to know about his business plan and so on in the panel. He came with somebody, not himself, carrying a roll-on suitcase. And what was in the roll-on suitcase? Awards he had won, his business. And you had to get somebody to carry. I mean, immediately, if we give the man this money, you buy a bigger suitcase. So, that can be a frightening experience, but it can also, we can also become so dogmatic that we get what we call the CEO disease. Anybody who does not praise us is not our friend. Everybody who brings a contrary idea is opposing us. But it's through that we can grow if we are honest about it. But it's not easy to accept that or develop that attitude of mind or psyche, especially when you have been proved so many times to be right. So be careful you don't get the CEO disease also. And then the last one I was going to talk about is the separation of child from parent. As the business grows and we get into the professional stage of it, if we don't overcome this, especially the women, we treat our enterprises like our babies, or like our children, and the men also treat it like they are grown-up son who they don't want to separate from. But there has to be a separation if we want to grow. And that separation we must prepare ourselves for. Otherwise, we become paranoid, we distrust people, we are suspicious of anybody, and there's no succession because we think we are the only people who can get the business. If we don't plan it, then the business will die with us and we will not be world class. Now, lastly, what I want to say is that, remember, the mind only sees what it is prepared for. Your mind. It only sees what it is prepared for. Work smarter, not harder. I need a volunteer. Somebody should give me their watch. Somebody who has a watch. Is it supposed to be people don't use watches because they use their phones and stuff and so on. And so we have first of all, how long have you had this watch? 7 years. 9 years. So it's been part of your life.
Yeah.
So first of all, let's assume this your watch is lost. And we are describing it to the policeman. Give us a description.
I know it's a fossil. That's the plant. That's. I think the screen is kind of blue. That's all I can remember.
Now you see how he's struggling with something that he has had for 9 years. He looks at his watch how many times a day? Now why do you think he's having that difficulty? Because he doesn't know.
Because he hasn't been looking at it to describe it. He's been looking at it to check time.
So his focus has, what else did he want to say? He forgot. But it's very true. You know, he looks at it all the time and yet he's saying kind of blue and that sort of thing. But the most important, anybody who has a fossil watch will remember that it still is a fossil watch. So he remembers that part, you know. And I thought the first thing he would probably say was that it was silver or something like that, which was very obvious. But if I had asked him a day after he had bought this watch to describe it, do you think he would have given me a better description?
Yes.
Because his focus was on the watch and how he chose it and he didn't like this one and so on and so forth. So as an entrepreneur, what you focus on will determine how your business is running or growing at any point in time. If it is focused on when you started it 10 years ago or 2 years ago or a year ago, you'll be operating it as such without staying in awareness of what is happening presently and what advantage you can take. You see, your mind is programmed in such a way that it wants efficiency. And so it always jumps to conclusions, which might not always be right. And so if you are running the business and you are focusing on why is it not growing, instead of turning the questions, what are the possibilities that can make it grow? It's just a two-sided coin. And what you choose to do or say will run your life. So one of the key things is to stay in awareness. When I say stay in awareness, be aware of. Don't becoming some, going some every day. Today, what is different? Is it the same? Has it changed? And what am I going to be deliberate about? If you have this kind of psyche, where you stay in I call it the CIA mode. What can I change today? What can I improve on today? And then, what can I adapt today? If you have that mode, all the time, you know, you are doing things with your mind. Your mind is a muscle. If you don't exercise it, it just won't, respond to you. And I was sharing with one of my classes the other time about the African brain. You saw that thing running on the internet. That the African brain and the European brain and Japanese brain, they were selling it. The most expensive was the African one.
Why?
The guy said, why? It's not being used. Cancel it in Jesus' name. Now we have entrepreneurs who are using their brains. But even today, the Ukraine problem on BBC as I was coming here, one of the opposition people was saying that the president should either be imprisoned or should go to Africa. As if Africa is hell in this day and age, today. And that is why we have a responsibility to go out into world class, so that it will just not be a few of us out there, but we will make a mark. In fact, at this time and age, anybody who is not thinking of Africa from Europe is lost, because this is where the opportunity is. And you see, the Chinese have come overtaking them. In Cameroon, they are roasting plantain, Chinese, and gobi. And then they move from there and go into the... I went to do some work in the remote part of Ashanti, one of the mining. I was surprised to see Chinese living in a container, selling chemicals. So the entrepreneurs, we need to be able to remember is only through that that we can work smarter and not harder to reach where we want. So, ladies and gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you so much.
Are there any questions? Yes, sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry, I'll have my back to you.
When you were talking, you were saying that the beginning of every business, the person who propels it is the entrepreneur. And once it gets to the professional stage, then the professionals will come in and run it. Now, as an entrepreneur, at what stage would you then say, okay, yeah, a professional should come in? And then with a professional, because an entrepreneur will always have at the back of his mind, this person doesn't know how I started, how difficult it is. So there's a conflict.
Yes.
Even when the professional is there helping you, there's a conflict. So how do you, at what stage will the conflict begin?
So the conflict will always be there because we're entrepreneurs. And as entrepreneurs, we think anybody else who is not an entrepreneur does not have sense, which is not true. But we are always, no matter what we do, inside us, we feel that, do they know how I built this business? But that is what you must manage. Nobody can manage it for you except yourself. Yes, I built this business, but I want it to be world class. It means that governance must be there. It means I must have a board. I must have an operating board, not a board that is my son and my 2-year-old kind of thing. And so, the governance is there. You can't be by yourself to be the board, you know. So you might want, because of maybe you need a minimum of 2 people to be on the board. All right. Now you know that your business is getting bigger. The accounting session. Now you can't sit down after work to do it by yourself and put it on the computer and so on and so forth. Or you might decide to get a software, or you might decide to get somebody who comes in once a quarter. But now you're moving away. There's that separation because now the legality, now when you started, you're probably a sole proprietor. Now you've got to limited liability. As soon as you do that, that's your professional stage. Because you are no longer the business. It is a different entity from you. And I remember many years ago on my board, I'd go to board meetings and I'll be saying, and this is. So one of the board members told me that, Madam, at this meeting, you are an employee of the company. You are CEO, but you can be fired. Can you imagine your own business? You are going to invite the board. But it was the truth. They could fire me and decide that I was not running the company properly, and that me who had founded it to search for somebody else to come and run it. And that is why, as entrepreneurs, and this will keep between us as entrepreneurs, you must always have majority shares. Don't go and be giving out your business unless you've gone into a stage where you want to go to public, where you get maybe 1 million, 2 million, when you have only 10%, that is worthwhile. But if it is not grown to that stage, you must have some controlling, because if the boss asks me, a majority shareholder at that time, I can veto what they are. You understand? You must be able to understand the intricacies of the thing. But if you are not careful, before the business is established, you lose it. There's a pharmacy I learned this lesson many, many years ago. There's a pharmacy in Kumasi called Psyche. He's died many years ago. And it was a big pharmacy. And we asked him, why did you call your pharmacy Psyche? And he said the meaning of Psyche is Ibikai. He was the pharmacist in those days. When UTC, most of you were not born then, UTC was there. And when UTC was checking out, they gave him that so he was doing very, very well. Then he invited his two friends. One was a lawyer and one was something I forgot. And they were friends. So he gave everybody, he took 40%, gave his friend 30, and the other one 30. And he thought, but I have 40. The two of them teamed up. So they 60 majority shareholders and then took over the business. Then he, because he was a pharmacist, he had a technical expertise. So, of course, he was able to start again, and he called it Kind Pharmacy. So, you've got to, that's why you have to be in awareness. Everything you are doing here, don't take it for granted as an entrepreneur. You've got to be careful about the stuff, especially the legal issues. The legal issues, you need help. And then you need to go and get a lawyer, and they are not cheap. So if you are not factoring that into your running and operating cost, then you take the money out, then there's a weakness in the system. So it's good to start early and think about these things as you go along. You might not get a full chartered accountant in the beginning, but you are planning to when you get to a certain, but because you have that psyche already, by the time they come, you are not in conflict because you know they are there to help you rather than to destroy you. And because you've run the business before, there are some things you can look out for which you wouldn't have if you hadn't done it before. So the lot of the entrepreneur is a tricky business, but it's exciting. I mean, I still don't think I would have wanted to, maybe I would have worked a little longer to get structure into my head. But I still think that I've done what I've loved. I've been able to play with my ideas and I've enjoyed being an entrepreneur. I hope that helps you. Yes, ma'am.
Which is best, to start your company as a limited liability when you have bought, no matter how small it is, or to start as a sole proprietorship?
You see, it all depends on what it is. For example, if you were starting a sewing company and you were the only person who was sewing, well, you see, you can't afford.
That's what I think.
You know? But what you could have is an oversight committee, a group of people who you recognize as an oversight committee because you want to learn the governance rules. Right? So the idea is there, and as you grow, then you have a board because it has also financial implications and so on and so forth, which you probably cannot afford. That's why people like to go sole and then if it's their first business and then it grows. But if you, let's say you had a lot of money and you, at a certain stage, the best thing is just go limited liability and have share. But remember, the point is that you want to be world class. You can't go world class when you're sole proprietor.
You can start there and learn from there and then
yes, and build it. Because that's what you want in the future. And that's why you create your future. For example, I mean, if I was a sole proprietorship, I could not be opening an institute in Abuja. You see? But being in awareness of technology, I can do it without having an office. Whereas before, there's no way. They will say a 419. That's
Other questions?
yes.
So trying to get a bigger understanding of the mind only sees what it's prepared for.
Yeah.
It's, doesn't mean going to study MBA.
Oh no, not
Oh,
necessarily. Not necessarily. It is how you see. For example, when you don't have money, you tell your friends that you are what? We are broke. What's a short form of Coca-Cola? What is the, a funny story? How do you call a funny story? Joke. And then what is the white of yolk, of egg?
Yolk.
So you see, yeah, I shifted your mind, I prepared your mind to sound and not to meaning. So even though and see, that's a dangerous part about, even though you knew the answer, immediately you told me a lie. But you knew the answer. You knew the fact. But you gave me the perception. Because your mind, and that's how your mind, that's why it's good to feed into your mind when you're going to bed. Because your mind never sleeps. So if you have a problem, give it to your mind and go to sleep. And that's why people come and they say, oh, Eureka, when I was having in my bath, I found it. But your mind has been working on it, from the beginning. So that's why it's careful. You must be careful what you feed into your mind. You must be careful as an entrepreneur. What goes into your mind? What do you feed into your mind? What possibilities do you put into your mind? Or rather, do you put barriers? Or do you see them as hurdles? See, so that's psyche. That's why the psyche of the entrepreneur is so important. Because the business will run according to your psyche. Because no matter what, you are the owner of the idea, and it drives you. You see, you make a choice between. The other time I was talking to somebody and I asked him why so with this particular company, and he said, and I said why, and he said, well, the owner said that things were not as good as it used to be, and yet he's gone and bought the latest Mercedes. It might be his own money, not the company money. You see, because it's a big company, so there's a separation. But it's not the best time to go and buy that Mercedes, or even if you buy it, it's not the best time to bring it for everybody to see and what. You remember applause and notice. Because you are telling your workers things are not good, and then you are coming around. So you've got to check your psyche. Your psyche is very, very important to the success of it. And if you have a psyche that wants too much applause, fortunately I had a board that could put bricks on me, left to me alone. Today I'll do this, do that, do that, and they'll say, let's look at the financials and what is your projection like. But if I don't have a board, I'll go crash and then I'll say, oh, I can do it again, and then you keep on going round in cycles.
Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Just something, because we've had a class on this before. Your own thoughts, since this is a very big subject on psyche, and the success or failure of Ghanaian businesses, in your own analysis, we couldn't say that the Ghanaian businesses have been there are some really good ones too, but in this class I think it's still a question of how many successful Ghanaian businesses do you know? And so my question is, in your own analysis, what has accounted for that failure, and what do you think? Because it sounds like this is a very big thing that will make or break us. The last statement, right time, right,
Yeah, and the wrong.
Yeah.
You see, it is because we have not been deliberate. You see, we have, if you look at the businesses that even succeeded, they have happened more by accident. And where there was no deliberate, even if you look at the old time people who, like the Siams and so on, but they built these businesses, big businesses, but they were missing gaps. No real succession plan. Where was the business going to be for the next 20 years when they had left the scene? See, all those things that's a professional part. So that you will be making a lot of money, but there's no supporting structure and systems. And so when you die, it dies with you. So I think that what we need to do, and thank God entrepreneur, like I was saying, when I started, entrepreneurship was a taboo word for a graduate. It was unheard of. For you to, in fact, a businessman used to laugh at that. They used to have a black bag, you know, and call yourself a business person. So the environment did not even support that kind of thing. If your psyche, so assuming, and I remember I used to go to Kantamanto, people used to laugh at me that when I get, you can't find a question, guess what? You go to Kantamanto, you can find it. Because I had friends, the traders, those who give me clips for my buckles, those who give me this, who give me that, and then I'll buy them in the, I didn't have a car at that time, and then Kayayo will be following me. Meanwhile, I go and pass at Swan Melo. My colleagues were in Swan Melo, Unilever, and I go with my bag and sell to them. They will be buying. Because and then when we're doing the bags, and they said, "Oh," I said, "But why don't you do belts?" So now they were giving me ideas. So when I go with the belts and bag, then they'll pay them, and then they will pay me, and so on. But they all thought they were still high, isn't it? There was a stigma that they're superior. I was lucky that I was even working with them, so they would say, they would take me like that. You know, but now you're an entrepreneur, they are proud of it. You know, so it's a totality. There's no simple answer to it. But now it's getting better. I think that in 10, 20 years, we will have more sustainable businesses that are world class, because that is the way the world is going. People have a better understanding of what an entrepreneur is, what it takes to grow an enterprise, how to be deliberate and intentional about it, rather than stumbling upon it. So that way we are small. We don't, how would I have even thought that I could collaborate with a Nigerian, you know, and have an institute that was not in Ghana but serves the whole of West Africa. See, so let's it lies in our hands to make this thing work in this country and make people see that it is possible. It is very possible. You know that Mansell's and so on, they started by sewing and built big vocational schools, and Mansell was the institute to go to in those days. If you wanted a finishing school in terms of sewing and so on and so forth. I mean, I started my bags. I didn't know how to sew, by the way. I didn't know how to sew. All I knew was that I had the idea and I had to get somebody. And I remember the first presentation I went and made somewhere. The way I did the presentation, people asked whether they could buy shares in it. I had one worker with the hand machine, not even electric, sitting on my dining table making bags. Sorry about that.
Yeah, so from what we have learned so far, the assumptions, one of the assumptions I am coming to is this side of an entrepreneurial kind of person. Is it really taught, or is something that is intuitive?
Oh, there's a lot of literature about it, and there will always be the battle of where are they born or where can they be learned, you know. But once we can identify the components of an entrepreneur, I think you can teach it. But if the person has a natural, there's a lot of studies have also been done that show that there's a probability of a gene or a probability of family history because it runs in the family. But there's some people, for example, nobody, my whole family is full of educationists, you know. I'm the first one who did anything about it, you know. But it's interesting, I've just come back to it, isn't it? I'm training, you know. So that debate will go on forever. But what is important is, I've recognized this. It is possible to teach yourself these things. If you're somebody who has a lot of, every time you want to do something, the self-talk, your self-talk is 6 times faster than I'm speaking to you now. And so if your self-talk is negative all the time, you can't do it. Do you remember the other time? You remember how we were laughing at you and so on. Then it grounds you. But if you're able to counter it, and it's interesting, you see, because that message that goes through your brain, you know, it's between 2 synapses, and the chemistry is in between these two. Now, when that message comes in like that, negative, and you counter it with another person, it goes off like that. It just blows away. It's amazing how God has made our brain. It just blows away. And if you keep on saying, it cuts it off completely. That chemistry just does not work. So it shows that in our brains we are able to teach ourselves to have a certain mindset and to work with us. Because entrepreneurs, you can really get impressed sometimes. Especially when you are so sure this thing will happen and then doesn't happen. But then you've got to teach yourself to move on and not to make the mistakes that you made, and to reduce the risk and all that sort of thing.
Where can we find resources? Something online or how
You
to-
guys are lucky, just go Google. Google on the psyche of an entrepreneur or the mind of an entrepreneur or thinking of an entrepreneur, pop up with all kinds of things. And there's a lot of work done by somebody called Sarasti. It's S-A-R-A-S. And the surname is S-A-R-A-S-B-T-H-Y. She's the latest and has done the latest work on the entrepreneurial mind. And it's very interesting what she discovered, that entrepreneurs don't set goals initially. We look at the big picture and then we work. As we go, then we begin to, the fact that we are indeed risk. We are not gamblers. We are risk averse. We calculate things to ensure that we will succeed.
To come back to your experience with this export you were doing, didn't you have, we've experienced a similar situation. I work with a company called Aztec, which uses.
Okay, so I thought I had seen you before. You were in Emperor. You came to one of the Emperor programs.
So.
Yeah. Your sister is Stella. Yeah.
Did you have a contract with them? And how did you sort that out?
We did not have any firm contract with them in terms of we're going to work for you for this number of years. We would have contract for a particular year as to how much you supply them. You understand? But now, if I was going to go into that, I'll probably say we must have a fixed period, and I'm sure I won't fall into that. But the other way is that just don't have one person you're selling to. Simple, But at 90% of our exports was going there, and because of success. You see, this was not a one-time thing. It was continuing 2 years, 3 years, 4 years. So we became complacent. I'd go to the States and walk into Pier 1 shops and go and tell the manager that I'm the producer. They are not sure whether to call security or what. There's a mad woman, because they couldn't, the shops, they don't know that these things are coming from Africa or anything like that, And just enjoying the fact that if I can make this money, so I can spend this money, that kind of thing. So if you don't sit down to really look at Aztec. Aztec was the pioneer for bottled water, and yet nobody remembers Aztec. And look at that drink, the Tetra. Completely gone, but you were the pioneers, and nobody remembers it. So what was the missing? So it just helps you to look at what was it? Was it the funding? What was it? Was it the people? Was it our markets? We didn't design, we took too many things for granted. Look at even Coca-Cola. What's their water called?
The sun.
Do you see that? And small companies like Aqua and something has completely washed with all the resources that Coca-Cola has. Look at Minute Maid again, Coca-Cola. In Ghana, it's very successful on the Nigerian market. But in Ghana, they took it for granted. If it works in Nigeria, it will work in Ghana. It didn't work. So you always have to stay in the awareness. This sentence, don't forget it. Stay in awareness. What is happening today? How does it concern my business? It will help so that you are not forced into it. It's the same attitude that you don't think of overdraft until you are really driven to it, and then you go for higher interest money, whereas you could have negotiated it with your bank if you had thought about it that in 6 months we will need this money, and let my bank.
How do you believe that most of the times people are aware, they stay in their awareness, but sometimes they sit back and think automatically it's going to work. So what kind of on that part, what do you do?
Okay. The minute you think automatically, they are not in awareness. So it's you have to train yourself. That is why we talk about the psyche of the entrepreneur. Nobody can do it for you. You have to train your mind. Number one, when I'm down, what do I do to pull myself up? Number two, what is my weakness? What are my strengths? So that if my weakness was spending money. So how to, when I was collecting the money, I'll go and when I started, I'll collect the money, I'll put it in my bag. On the way, I'll see a shoe. I didn't have a salary and this and so on. So when I got to the point where I decided that no, I can't run a business like that. Now I needed somebody who would be a correction. So what I did was that I had a secretary, and it was her responsibility at the end of every day to ask her, Madam, how much money did you collect today, and to report it and how much you have spent. She too at the beginning, she was, how can I ask my boss how much money she made? So she was not doing it. And I told her, any money that's missing, I'll take it from your pay. Immediately she sat down. You see, because it will affect her. The pinch was there. So she started recording. And I didn't want to be embarrassed with my secretary. So he started putting discipline into my life. When I got into, we became bigger and so on, and had a board and signatories, I could not sign anything by myself. It had to be countersigned by a member of the board. And you have to add a note to it. That's why your board, you must say people you respect, not people you can override, and so on and so forth. They help you we protest. And me, I always like the bankers view, because they give you the worst scene scenario. So if I can overcome what they are saying, then I'm in good shape, But I like to listen to them because they, in fact, most times what they are saying is the truth. If only we would open our eyes and put the things properly, then we would be able to. Because I always say that my first 4-wheel drive, I bought it because of my bankers. And you should correspond with your bank and go to a bank you can have a relationship with. Don't go to a bank who does not think you are too small. Go to a bank you can have a relationship with. And the bank, we used to do consulting work, and then we rent vehicles because we are going out to Accra and so on. And so they told us that, look, if you have money to rent vehicles and pay so much, then you can buy a vehicle and pay that to offset to be your rental. Just like bank, believe it or not. And they bought the vehicle and then we started paying. Otherwise, I would have. And then the use of information, something I forgot. Very important. Teach yourself to look at the information that comes into your organization and use it. You see, so long as you don't use it, it is not information, it's data. So look, try and see, how much do I spend? What should I use this for? If we had this software, how much would it save us? Things like that. Make time for your business. Don't just think about sell. You are the CEO, and it requires much more than just selling. You have to think of how we're going to market this thing. What type of person do I want in my organization? But as much as I'm saying all this, it's not easy. It takes a lot of discipline. You know. And that's why as you're growing, give it the responsibility to other people. And then you become the strategic person and you're able to think about it. I hope that helps.
Yeah, also, like as a growing business, do you need to have an idea about everything that's going on as the expertise are coming in, the professionals are coming in? Do you have to have an idea of what everybody is doing, or you leave it to them and then you make them work effectively? And I don't know, how do you?
Okay, how can you make them work effectively? Your definition of effectively. Delegation is only correct when there's supervision. You know, so you yourself must know key points. And that's why you have to come to performance thinking program next time we run it. It teaches you what is critical. But you have to train yourself. When we give you information, what should I pick up? So if you take your account, you know that I must know the balance sheet, what is important, how much profit are we making any losses. Four or five things, key questions that can sink you if you don't know. Then you take HR. What do I want to see the culture in this organization? We take the first 3 or 4. So that's you. They will go through the nitty-gritties of all the details. But you know, you need a total picture. Meanwhile, your key role is to be strategic. What should we be? 1 year, 2 year, 3 years? You are the dream. You are the dreamer. You see?
Well, thank you very much, this has been a very, very informative session. I mean, there's so much that we have learned beyond entrepreneurship. There's no doubt about it. You know, some of us were asking, you know, additional resource. If you go to Antiakusia's, you know, program, critical thinking, you know, which he runs, performance thinking. Well, which he runs every other month.
The next one is in May.
The next one is in May. I mean, there's so much that we can learn as entrepreneurs. You know, again, we just want to say a big thank you for this evening, taking our time to help us to learn about the psyche of the entrepreneur. What is it that makes you one? If you were not born an entrepreneur, can you be made one? You know, and I think we have so much that we can go and refer to. For those of you who are asking, you know, okay, you know, sole proprietorship, limited liability and all that, again, that's what we do at Servlet, you know, to be able to help you find the best structure, you know, for your business. So please feel free to speak to any of us and we'll be able to help, you know. I think some of the key things, you know, that Antia talked about, I just want to recap. You know, I like the part where she talked about, you know, being aware of the darker side of the entrepreneur. You know, and I think it's something that we all need to, you know, we all need to look out for. And it's important, you know, even in talking about the board and all that. Sometimes, you know, one of the things that make people shy away from putting the board there, you know, they say, I've formed my own company. Why do I have to put somebody on, you know, above me and all that? But these are things that help you. I mean, if you don't have the structure, because as much as you are thinking now, if you are not there, will this business be able to survive? We've been talking about businesses that have, you know, closed shop, you know, and we're doing very, very well maybe at the time that the founder was living. But after then, you know, because no succession plan was put in place and all that, they are not there now. These are some of the things that, you know, at Servlet we help you to put the right legal and management structure together. You know, this whole month, for the next 6 weeks actually, we're running what we call the business class. So if you have not already signed on, please, you know, speak to any of us again. And it's a 6-week intensive program just to help entrepreneurs to be able to kickstart their business and help them run it in a sustainable manner. So thank you once again for coming. At this point, we will have our usual Friday soup. But before we do that, please let's say a word of prayer, and then we can go have dinner. Auntie Akosia, thank you very much once again. Shall we have Julius pray for us, please?
Shall we pray? Our Lord and Master, we're grateful to you for yet another opportunity to continue to learn. It is our firm belief that all of these that you put in front of us, the opportunities to resource that have studied and that have practiced the art of entrepreneurship. Indeed, it's a blessing to be able to hear and to be able to advise ourselves accordingly. We very much believe that these are not activities that are coincidental, but that they are part of your ultimate plan to help us build in our societies prosperous businesses that glorify you, businesses that are sustainable and give great opportunity to the next generation. And so we're grateful to you for the opportunity. And we ask that, Lord, as your word says, be ye not only listeners, but doers. Help us to put these seemingly simple, but obviously tough principles in our lives as we go. We thank you so much for Auntie Akosia. We ask that you will continue to bless her in everything that she does and give her many years to witness the rebirth of great African and sustainable businesses. In the name of Jesus, we pray.
Amen. May I please, one more thing. I am of the view and belief that, we don't have a choice but to be entrepreneurs. There's so much that is happening in Ghana, that our leaders cannot find solutions to. But I believe that as entrepreneurs, we are the ones who are going to find these solutions. This afternoon, we were just, in a chat, and we were just thinking about some of the recent problems that the government is facing. We talk about, the currency issues here, we talk about unemployment, we talk about all of these things, and we said, look, but who is going to create, the employment for the people? If it's not entrepreneurs who are going to start businesses that are going to create jobs, put, money into the youth's hands, and, to create some sort of economic bubble, grow our GDP. If most businesses are formalized, that means that the government is going to get a lot more tax revenue, infrastructure will be built. Ghana will be that kind of place where lots of people want to come, and building that enabling environment. But if our universities and our tertiary, institutions are churning out almost 70,000 graduates every year, only 6.5% get into the formal sector. That's less than 10,000. So that means that we have 60,000 people in the pool who are competing for jobs that are not in existence. And that is why it's almost like, it's a call to you to, even if you thought you were not a born entrepreneur, how can you learn? It's serious. To create jobs, because this is the need in our society right now. So please, let's take it seriously. Thank you very much. Let's have dinner.
Thank you.
Sure. We're at the end of